Hi, and welcome to section 9.5, where we talk about loans. In section 9.5, we talk about a couple of different kinds of loans. We talk about credit card loans, and we talk about amortized loans. Objective 1 deals with credit cards. Everyone's familiar, I think, with the concept of a credit card. In using a credit card, you are essentially borrowing money from a lender. But in this case, it is your credit card company. So it might be a bank or a credit union. Loans in and of themselves are not necessarily bad for you financially, like to take out a mortgage. And credit cards are no different than that because they offer convenience and they are a good way to build your credit score. So, in that sense, by using a credit card, borrowing money by spending on your credit card, and then paying your credit card bill back demonstrates to creditors that you are a good credit risk, that you will pay back your bills. So when they track that over time and you go to apply for example, a mortgage or a car loan, that is a positive impact on your credit rating. The trick is to avoid fees and interest by paying off your credit card bill in a timely manner. And the ideal, is to pay it off every month in full. Down here are some terms that you might want to consider with a credit card offer. The annual percentage rate can vary. Like some credit cards will not charge you interest, though that's unusual. Other credit cards will give you a 0% introductory APR for a short period of time. And then after that, they raise it up based on your credit worthiness. And it also can vary depending on what the prime rate is set. Now, when you go to transfer one credit card to a new credit card, a lot of times they make those APRs very, very attractive. So initially, you'll start out with a 0 introductory APR, and then again, they'll raise that up. If you want to be able to take out cash and therefore borrow cash from your credit card, those APRs are typically very, very high. You can see here this example, 24.9% on cash advances, and that usually starts accruing the minute you take the cash out of the ATM. Of course, this will vary. The penalty APR, for example, when you are late on paying your credit card bill, these are typically even higher, and they will hit you pretty hard on those. So imagine if you don't pay your credit card bill off every month and you have a penalty or you accrue interest. This will start to add up significantly over time, and it is very difficult to get out of that hole. So the caution statement here, 3 possible interest rates in the example that you can be charged based on your credit score. So it is really crucial that you maintain good credit by paying your bills on time as much as you can. The credit card offer that they're showing here displays 3 possible interest rates. So your more credit-worthy customers would get the lower rate, and your customers that are riskier will get the higher rate. Credit card also have a minimum payment based on your balance, but they don't really advertise that you can pay whatever you want above and beyond the minimum. The minimum is not going to help you pay off your credit card balance in any short amount of time. So you always want to be aware of the fact that when you have a credit card balance, if you only pay the minimum, you will be paying on that credit card minimum for quite some time. Now, other kinds of loans, like car loans and student loans and home loans, those have a fixed monthly payment. You've already set that up with your bank, your credit union, or your auto dealership, and you have a fixed amount of time to pay off that loan. And these types of loans, that are different from credit cards, and they are called amortized. And I'm going to, as you're used to, I'm going to grab a little highlighter and amortized. So that is a vocabulary word that you may or may not have heard, but exists in your home ownership project. So turning the page here, we're going to walk through an example. You charge a spring break trip to Cancun with your friends. Come back with a nice tan, many happy memories, and a balance of $1,652 on your credit card, which often happens after a vacation. Compute how long it will take to pay off the card, assuming you can make a $100 payment each month for each of the 3 APRs. So we've got a really good APR, 7.9%. We've got a APR, 14.9%. And we have a no way would I want it, 28.9%. And we're going to compute the total interest paid in each scenario. So we're going to show you that having a lower APR results in you paying less interest. So when you make this $100 payment every month, some of that payment is going to the principal and some of that payment is going to interest. So we wish to compute how long to pay off our balance. So which of the 5 functions should we use? Now let's review those 5 functions briefly. We talked about those in class. We have the 5 functions: rate, number of periods, payment, present value, and future value. And so if we want to know the number of periods it's going to take to pay off a loan, we would want to use the NPER function in Excel. Now, how would you type this information into the cell below that can be filled across? So what we would do is we would take the NPER, and in each of these cells, B3, B4, and B5, we would need to write the formula. But if we write the formula here in B3 in such a way, then we can just fill it across and it will take care of the autofill for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the NPER. Now remember, let me grab a little snip here if you don't mind, because I think that's important. NPER, so that you can see the arguments in that built-in Excel function. That's pretty important. Whoops, wrong page. Sorry about that. Going not far enough. There we go. This will be real big for just a minute, but that's okay. So the first thing we're going to enter is the rate. And remember, when we enter this in Excel, that is the periodic rate. So keep in mind, we're going to be dividing by n. So this particular, let me get some information here. This particular 7.9 B2 is your APR. But remember, you have to divide by 12 in order to make that a periodic rate. That is what Excel is expecting you to put in that first spot. Now for your payment, remember you are going to make $100 payment each month. Everybody okay with that, hopefully? So that 100 goes next because that's your payment. But keep in mind, that is money that is going out of your pocket. So that is a negative $100. Then we're going to look for present value of the loan. Well, right now the loan is the balance on your credit card. You have borrowed $1,652 from your credit card company. So that is the present value of your loan. And then the future value of your loan, you would like to be 0, because when the future value is 0, that means you have nothing left to pay off. Okay, and as I showed you in class, the 4th argument, 0, is optional because that is the default. So if you just close your parentheses, like say right here, and leave that part off, it'll just assume that that 0 is what's happening. Okay. So then what you would do is you do not need any absolute or relative references, because as you drag it across, it's going to change this B2 to a C2 and to a D2. So that's very helpful. And you can see what the the number of periods, excuse me. The number of periods ranges from 17 and a half periods to a little over 21 periods. So the higher interest rate, it takes you longer to pay off that amount. Now, how are we computing the interest? Well, what we're doing with the interest is we know that we are paying $1,652. That's the balance. Okay. Now, when we pay $100 times 17.55 payments, that's going to come out to more than 1652. In fact, let me show you that real quick. We'll have 100 times 17.55. So that comes out to 1755. So when we take this total amount paid and we subtract the 1,652, we get interest of approximately $103. Now, why is my number not exactly 102.68? Because right here, this 17.55, I rounded, but chances are there's a few more decimal places in there that I can't see. But that is how we're calculating the interest. We're taking this number times 100, so B3 times 100, and then we are subtracting the 1,652, and what's left over above the 1,652 is interest. And so when we drag that across, it's going to change that B3 to C3, and that then again to D3. Okay? So then they're asking us how much more in interest is paid with the worst rate compared to the best rate. Well, you pay $479.53 in interest. You're paying almost another $500 in interest. Whereas with the best rate, you're only paying about $100 in interest. So if I subtract those, that's how they're going to get that 376 number that you see on your screen. There you are. But you can see that your interest rate does matter, especially when you're paying off a trip like that. Your trip just became a whole lot more expensive with a higher interest rate. I hope that makes sense. All right, so moving on to amortized loans. Remember that a mortgage is a loan to buy a house. An amortized loan, here's the official textbook definition, is a loan such as for a car or a student loan or a home loan that has a fixed monthly payment and a fixed term in which to pay the loan off. Okay, and generally what happens with an amortized loan is that every payment, there is a piece of that payment that is going to pay off the actual loan amount, and then the other piece of that payment is paying your interest that you're paying to borrow the money. So an amortization schedule, like the one that you have in your home ownership Excel file, is a table that details each month's payment. And you can actually look at each month in the amortization schedule and say, okay, I'm paying this much for the principal and I'm paying this much for interest. Your mortgage rate is your interest rate, and that assumes the costs associated with getting a mortgage. It does not include closing costs, which are another cost of obtaining a mortgage and buying a home. Closing costs are the fees that are charged to the borrower. So if you're buying a house, that's you. They are charged by the bank and by the attorney for approving your mortgage. And those are costs also to appraise the house and inspect the house. So here's a little bit of information about kind of what I just said. Now, when we consider a home loan, like you are doing in your home ownership project, we use the PMT function to build a payment schedule called an amortization schedule, and that does detail each month's payment and interest. So they're breaking down this word amortize. Mort means mortality or death, which is a very, very dark topic. But basically, that is the ending of your mortgage, which is generally a very happy time. So you are gradually killing off your debt, which is a good thing. So, death, not so exciting, but killing off debt, very exciting. The monthly payment in Excel, remember, will be negative because we're using the payment function. And when it's negative, that means money is going out of your pocket. When researching mortgage rates, you will see two different interest rates. You will see the mortgage rate and the APR. The mortgage rate assumes the costs associated with getting a mortgage are included in the principal, and the APR does not. Closing costs are associated and must be taken into account when choosing a mortgage. So this next example is going to show you an amortization schedule. You are not actually going to be taxed with the task of building an amortization schedule. In fact, by giving you the Excel spreadsheet that we've given you, we have actually gifted you those formulas already set up. So if you're thinking that home ownership is in your future, you might be buying a home soon, you could hold on to that Excel spreadsheet and use it for your actual home purchase. And that amortization schedule, the formulas in there will be very helpful to you. You won't have to reinvent that wheel. Now, what it's doing here is it's taking the principal amount of the loan, it's taking the APR, and it's taking the term, 30 years, and it's starting out with a beginning balance. It's deducting off the monthly payment, and they're calculating that monthly payment from the PMT function. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Then they're saying out of this $1,199.10, 1,000 of it is interest. That's a lot of interest. It's almost the whole payment. And only $199.10 is principal. So the only part that comes off of your balance is the $199.10. So this cell minus this cell equals this cell. The interest is just payment you're paying to the bank. It does not reduce your loan amount at all. So then this ending balance becomes this beginning balance. And we go through that process again. Your interest payment's going down, your principal payment's going up, and your ending balance comes down just a little bit more. And every month you see that happening until you get all the way down to the end and you have an ending balance of 0. Okay? So that is what your amortization schedule does. You have the ability in your home ownership project to change this value. So that you can shop around for a proper APR, the one that would work best for you, and to see what that does to your monthly payment. So as far as the beginning principal, we would say equals B1. That's your principal value. Your monthly payment, we would use the PMT function. Now notice we're using B12 divided by 12 because that's a periodic rate. And we're using an absolute reference here because we always in this spreadsheet want to use this 6%. That is the APR that is relevant to this loan. Then we take B3. So let's take B3, 30 years. And we're going to make a monthly payment. So 30 years times 12 tells you how many times you are going to pay that loan or the number of periods. And then B1 is your present value of your loan. And then 0 would be your desired future value. You wish to pay this off. Okay. Now your interest payment, what you're going to do is you're going to take your periodic rate, so the 6% divided by 12, and you're going to multiply it by the balance. So here's your balance, and that's how we get the interest payment every month. We take our beginning balance and we multiply by the periodic rate, and then the remainder goes to principal. So this is nothing new as far as calculating interest payments. It's just that a chunk of this is going to interest, and then the remainder of the $1,199.10 is going to principal to shave off your debt. Now your principal payment will be in cell E6. So if you look here, there's E6. And so we take, sorry, lost that real quick. We take C6 plus D6. So we take the monthly payment and we add, see how this is a negative number? We add the interest payment to it. And that's how we get this principal payment. The ending principal, B6 plus E6. So we take that beginning balance, we subtract or add the negative number, and get the ending balance. And then lastly, the beginning principal for the next payment is this value. So we basically make this value. So right here, this would be F7. I'm sorry, F6, excuse me. Wrong row. F6 would be here in row 7. So that is what an amortization schedule does. Now you would, fill all your rows and columns down. And then how much interest do you pay over the 30 years? You're actually going to have to calculate this in your home ownership project. So if you take your monthly payment and you multiply it by the number of times you pay it, what you're going to have here, and we've done this before in the earlier part of the course, this is your total payments. This is interest and principal over the 30 years. So over the 30 years, I don't exactly know what that number is, but that is everything. Now we're going to subtract off the principal. So that amount of the loan, the principal amount is $200,000. So when we subtract off the $200,000, what is left over will be your interest over the course of the whole loan. Now, how does lowering the APR to 5%, so you get a new payment, change this answer? Well, back in your amortization schedule and in your amortization schedule, you will be changing your APR. So instead of having a 6% here, you would have a 5% here. And then you would do that calculation again, and you would see that your interest drops quite a bit to $186,510. So you can see the impact of a 1 percentage point change in the APR and its impact on your interest payment for the whole life of the loan. Okay, so that is 9.5. I appreciate you tuning in. Feel free to check out my next video for section 10.1.